I see all kinds of familiar names, all kinds of happy family faces.
Love it. Welcome everyone. While we're letting folks in, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and share where you're from. Lots of familiar names and lots of new names. I love it.
I'm Jim Snow. I'm a friend of Leo's, and it's through him that I got the invitation to join you, which I'm very, very pleased to be able to do today.
Wonderful. Welcome, Jim.
Always glad to see you smiling face. See some other very familiar faces, some I haven't seen in a while.
Love the community here.
Leo, congratulations. It's Candace.
Thank you. Yours is one of the wonderful faces that I have not seen in far too long.
Oh, God love you. God love you.
Meg, has everyone been admitted?
Yep. More people will probably keep entering, but so far the waiting room is mostly cleared out.
Okay, excellent. Then let's get things going. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and morning, depending on where you are right now. I'm Susie Bannon. I'm the Assistant Director of the Alliance for Higher Education in Prison. And as your moderator, I would like to welcome you to the first community conversation of 2023. Community conversations are virtual events that feature a conversation with a member or members of the higher education and prison community. And this is the first event of a three-part series that will be covering Education in Action, which is an Alliance initiative that connects higher education and prison students and former students with work learning opportunities, such as apprenticeships, internships, and fellowships. The next two parts of this series will be over the next 2 Wednesdays at the same time, 1:30 Eastern and 10:30 Pacific. So mark those on your calendar, and the registration is currently in the chat. Before we get started, I would like to share a little bit about my background with the Alliance. I was introduced to higher education in prison during my own incarceration in Texas, where I worked as a tutor. During that period, I have also been involved in the field of higher education in prison in some capacity since 2013, when I attended my first NCHEP as a graduate student. Those of you who have been around for a little while will know that that's actually a few years before the Alliance was officially formed. And working in higher education, while working in higher education in Texas, I also have served on the Journal of Higher Education in Prison editorial board. I'm a co-founder of the formerly incarcerated College Graduates Network, and I joined the Alliance staff as assistant director in December of last year. So as assistant director, I do a variety of types of work. I do a lot of community building. I work with our partners. I supervise staff. But one of the greater joys that I have had the privilege of experiencing in this role is working closely with Leo Hylton and Victoria Scott, who just joined the Alliance in March as part of a one-year fellowship, the first of its kind. That connects currently incarcerated scholars with the day-to-day work of the Alliance. It's very exciting, and they are amazing people, and you'll get to know them a bit more in just a second. So the format for today's conversation is fairly simple. I'm going to ask Leo and Victoria a few questions to guide their conversation. We'll spend about 30 minutes doing that, and then we'll switch to a Q&A for the remaining portion of the event. And if you do have questions that come up throughout the conversation, please use the Q&A function that's at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and that'll kind of collect all of the questions so that we can have them all neat and tidy to address them at the end. Before we kick off, I do want to take a moment to thank some of the people who have helped make this community conversation possible by supporting Leo and Victoria's fellowships with the Alliance. Thank you to Commissioner Randy Liberty, Deputy Commissioner Anthony Cantillo, Director of Training and Education Laura Rodas, Maine State Prison Warden Matt Magnuson, Southern Maine Women's Reentry Center leadership, the Mellon Foundation, and many others who have labored to make this happen. I'd also like to share just a bit more about Education in Action, which is the initiative that we will be talking about today, including the mission and vision guiding it, and how that relates and embodies to and embodies the mission of the Alliance itself. So the Alliance for Higher Education in Prison is committed to ensuring that individuals experiencing incarceration have access to quality education. And we seek to create equitable professional educational opportunities for incarcerated people. We seek to bridge the divide between the acquisition of knowledge and its practical application. And thus, we are launching the Education in Action initiative. This initiative focuses on the development of a sustainable infrastructure that will be capable of supporting the implementation of high impact learning practices during incarceration. When we say high impact learning practices, we mean things like internships, fellowships, apprenticeships, where you are learning in the professional work environment. Education in Action seeks to cultivate an environment that transcends punitive frameworks and advances a culture of lifelong learning, personal growth, and holistic professional evolution. The Alliance's vision of Education in Action promotes an informed, forward-thinking network that wholly embraces the value of high-impact work learning, and this redefined perspective on labor within the carceral system endeavors to challenge the persisting prejudices against and the stigmatization of incarcerated people. Victoria and Leo's fellowships are examples of what Education in Action looks like in practice, and today we're going to hear from them about what that means. So I just described a bit about the Education in Action initiative, that we are working to create these avenues for incarcerated people to apply their higher education in a professional setting. But I would like to hear from Victoria and Leo, what has that meant for you on your journey? And Victoria, we will start with you.
Thanks so much, Susie. This journey has been a bit of a slow burn at first, but it is gaining a lot of solid, rapid momentum right now, which is so exciting to see after years of what can kind of feel like an uphill battle, right? My educational journey started out with a lot of really admirable efforts from University of Maine and Augusta's prison education program and the Mellon Foundation, actually. I owe them a tremendous debt of gratitude for their interest in creating equal access to college level programming for women where it was previously non-existent. And that's how I really got my foot in the door with a lot of these really exciting opportunities and chances that I was dying to take. That's what led me to my experiences with the Educational Justice Institute at MIT and Professor Lee Perlman, who is constantly organizing, creating, and connecting people to different resources and to different opportunities and to different social contacts that can really help raise up incarcerated people and provide that community and that experience that we're all just craving here. So I don't have a lot of like meet cute stories in my history, but I would definitely say that my meet cute story with the Alliance is one of my favorites. I was participating in an inside out debate through the National Prison Debate League with MIT. And so the MDOC team was taking on MIT, and a lot of these fabulous partners who have formed these communities around to support and to hold spaces for incarcerated people got together and created this thing. And my name was brought up for a recommendation to be drafted onto the team, and I gladly accepted that opportunity. And that's where I first ran into our executive director at the Alliance, Fed Price, who was so excited to investigate what was going on with that and see the opportunity and to kind of scout the talent of the MDOC, because this was an unprecedented feat for an inside, prison debate team to be going up against an Ivy League school. So that's where I first met Ved, and we kind of gently started having conversations about what the possibilities in the future might be for incarcerated people to have internship and fellowship opportunities that were paid, that actually had practical applications for education as it was being earned, and career development for incarcerated people, which sounded really dreamy. It did, it sounded really dreamy at first. And it's so humbling and a little surreal and extremely thrilling to watch that manifest as a reality. That's entirely exciting, and the inside out communities and professional and social support networks that come along hand in hand with education and action opportunities are critical for incarcerated people to be able to redefine the terms in which they exist in the world and how they relate to the world and how they relate to themselves, which is so beautiful. And it really creates a lot of these sort of unfolding chances for someone to be able to find these steps that are going to help them reacclimate to the world and to society, and to be able to use these skills in a way that is both advantageous for them and is super helpful for the community at large. So it's a way to be able to contribute from behind the wall, but it's also a stabilizing force within. And the effects that has on peer groups are truly stunning. And it's just kind of been a miracle magic to watch that happen within the walls. So I know you got a great story for us, Leo. How about you?
I stay with a wonderful story. It's a good place to be. As a very wise woman once told me once, who might happen to be in this room right now, stories are our best teachers. And so my adult education actually started in incarceration. I got my GED while I was waiting to receive my prison sentence, and all of my college education has been in prison. But the journey itself has been amazing. So I took a bit of a reverse pathway that others might take coming into this, since I had actually been working for over a year before the Alliance created these fellowship positions. But before that, right, my associate and my bachelor's degrees were funded by Doris Buffett's Sunshine Lady Foundation here at the prison. And yeah, big love, respect to Doris and her memory, and to all those who are carrying on that work now, and all the professors who came in, who made time to step inside this prison, overcome the stigma and the fear that surrounds the narrative of who incarcerated people are and how we are in the world, and what these carceral spaces are, and what they can be. And so they overcame this and came in week after week and would go out and tell their other professor friends that, hey, some of our best students are at Maine State Prison. So that was really affirming over and over again. And then when I stepped into my master's program, I started at the beginning of COVID, right? Right at the beginning of COVID, with the lockdown and the expansion of Zoom. The complete explosion of my world, where I went from being in this place of stuckness to being able to engage with people in the real world, right? Not one artificially constructed, but people out there who are moving and shaking and existing in a world, living in a world that I haven't seen. At that point, it had been almost 13 years, or just over 13 years. But when I started my master's program, you're talking about something a little bit dreamy. I was talking to my academic advisor recently, and we were looking back at the dream of being able to do an internship as part of my master's program. And it was actually halfway through that internship that I started working as a professional. That at the Carter School, George Mason University, one of the schools there is the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution. And that's where I got my master's in conflict analysis and resolution. And one of the most transformative courses there was psychosocial trauma healing, with Al Fuertes, and that led into the praxis of forgiveness and reconciliation, which led into the co-creation of the working group on forgiveness and reconciliation, where I was able to be on the organizing team of breathing life into this, being a founder of something from prison, going from not even having my GED when I got incarcerated at 18 to now being 33, 15 years later, and operating as a professional, working as a professor at Colby, co-creating curricula for an abolitionist humanities curriculum project with Freedom and Captivity. Just all of this has been so incredible. And then I also met Ved along this journey, where my co-instructor and I at Colby were invited to present at the 12th National Conference on Higher Education in Prison on flipping the inside out model, where I am the first, so far as we know, I'm the first incarcerated professor to work in this capacity across the country. And unfortunately, Ved was unable to be here today because he's too busy out changing the world right now, because that's what we do. We are a small but mighty team who just continues to grind and drive for greater change and professional opportunities for people on the inside. Because it's one thing to work a prison job, it's a whole other to be able to function as a professional, to operate as a full professional in our communities and to contribute to our communities, as Victoria mentioned. But yeah, so Ved's off doing that. He's with us in spirit and love. And that is something that is unwavering among this team that I deeply, deeply value. So this journey is an ongoing one, but it's been amazing so far.
That's beautiful, Leo. Thank you both for sharing. And yes, Ved desperately wanted to be here today, but he is traveling for the next week and a half for work, building relationships and flexing networks and expanding possibilities, these dreamy ideas that we're now seeing come to reality. And you mentioned both, you discussed community. And you touched on some of the personal changes and possibilities and things that you have done as individuals along your journey in higher education and prison and education and action. But I'm curious if you could share a bit about what are the benefits that you see happening for communities, both inside the prison and external to the carceral setting? Leo, let's start with you this time.
You want to talk about benefits? Too many to count, right? From intra and interpersonal healing to my personal growth, community connection on the inside and the outside, professional development, like I mentioned, right? Being able to realize my potential, being able to operate in a way where I don't feel so stifled by the system, and the cultivation of voice and agency to be able to move and show what is possible within these carceral spaces has been incredible personally. And the impact, the universal feedback that I get from all the different ways that I'm able to engage with people outside, right? All of this internal work that I did, looking back to my mentor and, you know, the healing that he cultivated in me, and learning discipline and growth and love, tough love, a lot of tough love. And then stepping into hospice and meeting wonderful teachers and people like Candace, who was the wise woman who I mentioned earlier. And just engaging in all of that healing, and then stepping out into the world where people just don't really have space to do this type of inner work, right? The people have to pay a lot of money to go to somebody else to do some one-on-one work. That time has been invested in me by people within the system, in spite of the system, stepping out of doing the norm and stepping into the countercultural work of transformation, of healing. And then for me to be able to engage with people on the outside, again, whether it's the working group on forgiveness and reconciliation, or the way that we hold space at Colby in our classroom of community connection and healing and growth and actual application of the things that we're learning to various presentations, right? Being able to speak at different colleges, universities across the country and overseas, right? Like what we're doing here with this Education in Action initiative, the potential, the national impact that we're working to have right now, just infuses hope. And it's that joy and it's that hope that is cultivated in me in here that enables me to move the way that I do. And then to come into conversation with people on the outside, and then just to have them like, yo, you're in prison right now, and I'm looking to you for inspiration. I'm looking into you for peace, like that. And my healing, to get that type of feedback from people in the world, to actually be able to contribute beyond these walls in a way to other people's healing when I've caused such harm in this world, to be able to then bring healing and to be able to open doors for others to be able to do the same, because my desire to do this healing work and this reparative work is not unique to me. It is not unique to Victoria, right? That this is something that is felt across this country with these 2 million people currently incarcerated. I cannot tell you how many, the numbers are massive for how many people want to contribute to our communities in healing and reparative ways. And that starts with our family, right? So on my outside community, being able to contribute financially, to be able to make free roll money and contribute to my family, right? To be able to step in when my sister had an infected tooth that would have killed her if she was not able to have the funds to get it taken care of. I was able to do that, right? My nephew, my eldest nephew, unfortunately was out on probation, and I was able to help him buy a beater first and then be able to help him finance his first car, right? And then to be able to have a brokerage account with my mom where I can generate funds for her and for our family as our emergency fund. And for me to be able to tell her recently on her birthday, love you, Mom, happy birthday, that she can go in and pull some money out and treat herself. Right? These are ways that rather than being a financial burden on my family, I'm able to be a financial contributor and be able to pay taxes for the first time in my adult life while incarcerated, right? And so the benefits, I can go on all day about this, but I will stop here for a pause and pass it over to you, Victoria, right? You've been able to engage in similar professional spaces and opportunities and earning money like this. What has your experience been with inside and outside communities when it comes to benefits?
Leo, first, I just want to acknowledge, like, you said so many important things. You identified so many key areas that are the absolute seed of truth of what's going on with these movements and in these spaces. I feel like with these inside and outside communities and these education and action opportunities that we're broadening the scope of hope. We're really opening that up in a big and beautiful and courageous way, since this is so unprecedented. And, you had mentioned the national and overseas aspects of this, and this really speaks to the scale of what's going on, the demand, the necessity, and the possibility that's included in these efforts to create these systems and these infrastructures that support pathways for education and action for incarcerated people and for connection with the community, both professional and social, with positive peer networks, right? Like, I've been fortunate enough to engage with unique, intelligent, and talented people from all over the world, both on the inside and the outside. I've worked shoulder to virtual shoulder, learning web design and coding with men and women from facilities in Kentucky, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, while we were all designing social advocacy websites and learning the bombest marketable skills in our current digital era right now, right? Because that's so important. And it's really this ability to connect that connects us not only with the world outside, but with ourselves and with each other, like you had mentioned, with the intrapersonal and interpersonal healing that takes place in these spaces, which is so important. I've been in classes with brilliant and beautifully compassionate MIT students from all over the world that have embraced their strength of vulnerability over Zoom windows, being able to discuss some of the most difficult topics in our culture regarding violence, forgiveness, harm, and even love, and how open and raw people are, how brave is astounding. And the way that they fearlessly dive into these conversations with incarcerated people and look for opportunities to be able to maintain those connections is so life affirming and heartwarming at the same time, and this stuff kind of starts out small, but it's like seed starting, and you just watch something tender and full of life start to grow, something that has so much inherent potential in it. And then you see that start to gain strength and to reach towards the sun. And that gives you the strength to want to create more seats at the table, to pull out more chairs for the people in your community, for your peers on the inside, to be able to invite them to step up and to step into their power and to be able to engage in some of that power sharing once you're established and you have these professional community and academic contacts to say, here's a chance at something better for yourself. Here's a chance at self-actualization, an opportunity in a better life. Go be your best self. And it's funny because after your friends on the inside see the way that you carry yourself, the way that you stand just a little taller and that you grin just a little wider, and you got that shine on you, you have hope for something because the world looks different after being able to engage in such a meaningful way. Being valued as a member of these professional community and social networks changes your perspective not only on a world that seems so small before, but on yourself and on your place in it. And being able to help other people find their place is so gratifying. Being able to say, hey, here's this paid opportunity to be trained in facilitation for these freedom and captivity courses. Here's a paid internship from a business who wants to harness your skills and wants to be able to support you in your professional growth and development is huge.
I love it so much. Thank you both for sharing not just the benefits, but the transformative power of what is a movement. I want to make it clear that yes, Education in Action is an initiative of the Alliance. We are, working to create something that is scalable, but we want to see it become a movement, both, national, like Leo mentioned, but potentially even international. The rethinking the value of people who are incarcerated, their labor is a complete paradigm shift from the way that things have been historically, and that's just so powerful and amazing. Okay, well, before we move to Q&A, we have just a few more minutes for discussion. And I want to share that Leo and Victoria are leading the way in terms of the Alliance's efforts to create an infrastructure and scaling materials for education and action. And so these are things that we're currently working on, things like handbooks, guidebooks, examples of MOUs, what have you. And so I'd like for our fellows to share what it has meant to you personally to be at the forefront of this movement. Victoria.
This means the world to me. Us being able to be the change that we want to see is satisfying and uplifting and encouraging and energizing in such a phenomenal and almost unspeakable sort of way. And being able to apply the skills that I've learned in school and then I've been able to flex in other areas, like as a member of the University of Maine at Augusta's Prison Education Partnership Advisory Board. Yes, that's a mouthful. Helping to write the reentry grant through that to ensure academic continuity and case management services for people who release mid-degree kind of gave me a springboard and a lot of the technical knowledge and a lot of the professional confidence to be able to throw myself at the stuff that we're working on and to feel empowered, to feel a little bit like a boss, to be very excited to get down to business on this with such a strong and capable team. It's kind of on some Justice League stuff to be able to come together and to pool our superpowers into something that allows us to use our experiences as perspective to be able to engage in creative problem solving, to help create more opportunities and these transcendent channels and pathways to connect incarcerated people with the resources that are actually going to promote successful outcomes for the future. That's what I love to see. And I just really dig having the chance to be able to help be one of the architects in that, you know, to leave my pen strokes on some of those plans, and to be able to share that with you all is such a beautiful thing. So, and I know that Leo's throwing a lot into this too, putting all them skills to work. So why don't you tell us what it means to you?
Sure. Yeah. So I talked about my master's, right? And the whole point of that was not for the degree itself. I mean, yes, it's nice to have the letters and such. And I got accepted into a PhD program in the fall at the Carter School as well. But all of this is about what is possible, right? We continue, not just inside, but outside, we continue to limit ourselves and our perspective and our vision of what is possible. And so for me, right, I've been incarcerated now for 15 years. My entire adult life has been incarceration, right? And so I've been surrounded by, and at different times filled by, hopelessness. And I talked about my mentor, right? And I talked about Candace and the names of the people who have come through this system, who have, you know, and worked within the system. There have been a number of people who have worked within the system, you know, who just refuse to allow the old ways of being and to allow the foundations of this system to dictate how we are with each other, right? This thread of community, the title of this, right? Community conversations. We need to build community. And so what we're doing here, yes, we're talking about an initiative. Yes, we're talking about culture change. Yes, we're talking about a movement. And we're also talking about building community. And so for me, that is central to everything that I do, and everything that I am is building community and being able to now with the Alliance, right? We're moving forward with starting a cohort of interns, right? Currently incarcerated people who are able to work for outside organizations for real pay, being honored for the fullness of our humanity and our skill and our skill set and our professionalism and our capacity to engage in ways that formerly have not been possible. And so to be at the forefront of this, of showing what is possible, of being able to be on Zoom with a whole bunch of people, putting out a massive invite saying, hey, show up, hang out for a little bit, right? That goes against everything that prisons have been, everything that the narrative around prisons have been, and the restrictions on what has been possible from these carceral spaces, right? This leading what is possible is what helps get me up in the morning, right? Of being able to do this freedom in captivity, teach at Kobe, do these presentations, engage with people in the free world, and show, right? With that stance just a little bit taller and that smile just a little bit wider, right? To be able to show and have people ask why, right? Why are you able to move the way that you do and no longer have to have the answer of, oh, it's my faith. It's, you know, I trust that God is moving. I trust that good things are coming, even though we can't see anything. Now I can actually point to something and say, see what's happening? Real change is happening. Real movement is happening. And this is something that is going to affect you and that affects you right now. And it is affecting me and my family and everyone who is connected to me on the inside and the outside. And so to be able to move in that way, and to be able to see that spark and that smile light up in somebody else, and just that courage to entertain the idea of hope after 30 plus years. I'm thinking about one person in particular right now who, after 30 years of incarceration, just turned 50 and now he's going back to college. Or he's going to college for the first time. Says that he would never go to college. Never. So for years he said, I will never do that. And here he is, 30 plus years into his incarceration, 50 years old, going to college, hoping for something better, because he was able to see that something better was coming. And so that hope and that strength and that courage that this can facilitate, and to be at the forefront of that, couldn't ask for anything more.
Hope, courage, and possibility are words that I've heard throughout this conversation, and I think the contagiousness of all three of those is really powerful and inspiring, and is going to be the foundation by which this truly does become a movement and changes the landscape of both higher education and prison and the carceral system. And so I want to thank you both for sharing your experiences of hope, courage, and possibility, and taking time from your day today, because I know you're both also very busy with your studies and your peripheral projects. And we do have time for a Q&A. And so I'm going to open things up to our audience. Please don't hesitate. Ask away. We will not be courageous. Don't be shy. I don't see any in the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom, but we can also turn to the chat, or you can just pop in, come off mute, ask away. I think everyone's just in awe right now.
Dan Fortune has a question. If you want to come off mute.
So as someone who has a chance to see both of them in action on a fairly regular basis, like, let me tell you, from the inside watching them, it is amazing. And everything that you think listening to them is even better to see them in action. I want to say, like, you guys have both touched about it, but on a daily basis, right, or like even more personal basis, what is it meant to be not only just like your family members, stuff like that, but in here, like, can you talk about a specific project or something that each one of you have done that you've been able to influence and affect in a positive way?
Oh, fine. I'll go first. So the list is long. Like I said, it's been 15 years, and I had a lot of help and guidance to be able to work on different projects long before Zoom opened up to be able to engage in this way. But where so much of my heart is between the Freedom of Captivity family and my students at Colby. Well, the biggest, I have to say, I mean, all love to my Freedom of Captivity family who's in the room right now. But I have to say the impact, the engagement with my students at Colby, to be able to teach, right? I teach at Colby, and that's in Waterville in Maine, in Kennebec County, which is where I committed my crime. And so to be able to work and walk with my students through their wrestling with concepts like restorative justice and forgiveness and healing and repair and accountability, reparation, systems change from my positionality of being incarcerated, and to have them show up to my office hours, a number of young women who have experienced sexual violence, and talk through how they could have experienced more healing if there were more access to restorative justice practices, and asking the hard questions of what can it actually look like? Because I see these things that are labeled as restorative, but it didn't feel restorative when I went through it. So what can we do differently? And to be able to facilitate that type of healing, that type of realness. And, this semester, a student, there was a theft in his dorm, and saying, how can I get involved in bringing about accountability and repair and healing in the aftermath of this from where I am with what I have? Answering that so what question, right? What can I do from where I am with what I have to have a positive impact on the world around me? And engaging with students in the same county and helping them heal and helping them grow and helping them see something different and better and build agency and strengthen their life. In the same place where I had caused so much harm. That is something that can't be taken from me. That's something that I hold so very dear. Tori, what about you?
I did foreshadow my special project earlier, which is probably the reentry grant. That is some of the most, I don't want to say significant or substantial, but that was definitely a win that I didn't even know that I had in me. And when the director of the Prison Education Partnership, sent me the email saying Davis accepted and funded in full the Davis Foundation, I literally like just dropped to my knees on the floor reading that email, and I cried because I was so glad that so many people who leave empty-handed without the help that they need, without the resources in hand, and without a clue of who to even reach out to or how to move forward when they have had, this rigid structure around them where everything was controlled. They were in a highly controlled environment, and then they're out in the wild world wondering how to fly again, right? So that's super difficult, and that was really great. And other than that, I would say definitely our placement as fellows at the Alliance it feels a lot almost like crossing the finish line after a long marathon, by the way. I mean, it's it feels so significant and it feels so transcendent. And I am so grateful and honored and privileged to be a part of this, to be, fashioning this mold and setting this example and hopefully blazing a trail for other incarcerated people who need these chances, not just want, not just would like, it's not a caprice, is that this is something that is absolutely and fundamentally necessary if people are going to be successful all across our nation when they leave prisons, in order to stop that revolving door right in its tracks. People need to be financially stable. They need to have positive peer and communal networks, and they need to be able to have professional skills that they are well practiced at using, with employers who welcome them and who are willing to allow them to use their skills and value their efforts enough to pay a reasonable wage for that. And that's everything to really kind of interrupting those cycles of poverty and intergenerational trauma and mass incarceration. So this feels really important. So probably the Alliance Fellowship, that's top tier.
And I know you're not just saying that because your colleagues are in the room, Victoria. I told y'all this the other day. The fact that we were sitting on a Zoom meeting, co-working, it gives me chills as someone who has been in your shoes, and remembering the the constraints imposed upon incarcerated people, not just the physical ones with walls, but the psychological ones with how you're frequently treated, and the stories you hear about yourself. So all of the possibility that comes with these opportunities, it's all transformative and very powerful. There was one more question. Dave, do you want to come off mute and ask your question about electoral politics?
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. And God bless you all for being here. And I'm crying. Yeah, I mean, I've been over the last N years, I've been slogging away, talking to voters all over the country. One thing I have to put a plug in is that if you ever do any phone banking and you have an opportunity to call into any of the indigenous areas in the Southwest, especially Arizona, this is time beautifully spent. You'll get more than you give, for sure. Yeah, everything is connected now. That's what's so amazing. And, my experience in these telephone calls, both with colleagues and with citizens, is that so many people are just seeing things. It's so amazing that the word woke is considered dirty. The last Sunday sermon by Dr. King was a takeoff on the the guy who anyway, Rip Van Winkle, who fell asleep 10 years before the American Revolution, He woke up 10 years after. And he had a feeling that things had changed, but he slept through it. So he didn't understand really what had changed. And I think we're all feeling it in our blood. So yeah, it's not a question. It's an invitation, which is what we're all doing here. I think we're just inviting each other. So God bless and thanks again.
If I
Thank you,
could
Dave.
jump in real quick, this is Dolphin
Please
Edmore.
do.
I am the housing director at Operation Restoration here in New Orleans. I'm also an Edge Trust Justice Fellow this year. And just listening to the stories, you know, it makes you feel connected, because oftentimes we feel that it's just our story, right? And so in prison for the 4th time, 40 years old, and I realized I had to do something else or I was gonna get the same thing. And I knew that education could help me. Always was academically enhanced, but it wasn't celebrated in my home. So I didn't think it was important. 40 years old, I was in prison, and a professor said to me that she wanted me to continue my education by going to college. And then my response was, how? I'm poor. I never knew that people who were African American, who did not have money, could go to college. At 40 years old, I learned that I could. And so I left that prison. Remy said, could you pull that door for me? Yeah, I am. I'm sorry, y'all. At 40 years old, once released at 42, I went to college. And I graduated at 45. And it saved. I was homeless, living with hiding in my mother's senior living building. And I left there every day and went to school. And I used their laptops and I used their Wi-Fi. And I was determined that this was going to be one thing that no one could take from me. And by doing so, I have a career now. I don't just have a job. I have a career doing what no one did for me. And that's showing up every day for formerly incarcerated people. Going back to the same prison that I was in 4 times, because hope never came back for me. And hope was all I needed. Prison took everything I had except my children and my hope. And once the access was granted, I was determined to ensure that I would be at every seat in every room that didn't or did discuss women and girls who were incarcerated, because we weren't being talked about. And so, you know, today, there is nowhere else for me. This is my life. And as a result, my children are well. My grandchildren are well. I was able to not just rent a home, purchase one. And it was because the path that I was granted access to, I took it. Thank you all for sharing your stories. And again, if I'm completely honest, it's not often that people that don't look like me share with me, and I feel connected. So thank you.
You are amazing.
Thank you, Dolphinette. Thank you. And I love that you're at Operation Restoration. Huge fan. Please tell Sarita I said hello. Absolutely beautiful. And I think, again, that connection, that's why every single person I know that has experienced the carceral system that does this work is for the same reason, to bring hope back in for people who haven't been shown up for. So thank you. That's I'm gonna cry. So we have like 6 minutes. Does anyone have any final thoughts, questions, comments, truths? Well, I wonder if, just for the last couple of minutes, if Leo and Victoria would mind sharing, you don't need to go into great detail, but what are some of the challenges of navigating education and action, not necessarily in your fellowships, but when you have worked to apply your education in whatever setting, what are some of the challenges and how do you navigate those?
Policies, communication within the facility, and just kind of sometimes not having a course charted for these things. If it's so unprecedented, it can be a little dysregulating for a bureaucratically operated system to even imagine what it would look like to implement, to enact, to stretch the borders of what's comfortable, and to figure out who would be institutionally responsible for that, or who fields this pitch, or who needs to be asked for permissions and things like that. And so a lot of it would also probably be the level of communication that's necessary to organize these things in a very planful way so that it can go off a little bit more seamlessly than what we're used to. We're used to a lot of hiccups. So we've had some bumpy roads, but that's okay. We get pretty far anyhow. So I think that those are some of the barriers to that. And really the solution is respect, love, communication, and ultimately persistence. Just continue having that conversation, talk and bone up on your policies, and make sure that you're talking to the right people and really just speaking your truth in your heart in a mindful and respectful way. Leo, anything to add?
Yeah, so I will give a plug for part 2 of our education and action community conversation next week, same time, same station, because the challenges are many and navigating them can be very fraught, but totally worth it. And so rather than jumping into to the challenges and just the long list of them that we've had to navigate, I want to thank you, Delphinette, for opening up, and Dave, for your vulnerability, both of you, in really stepping in and leaning into this space and this sharing, because this right here is how we build community. And regardless of what obstacles come, regardless of what challenges exist, because they are too many to count or name, I mean, God first for me, but community is the answer, right? Building community, coming together, leaning into each other, challenging each other to continue to grow and learn and heal in ways that we're going to get triggered in different ways along the way. And we all carry a whole lot of weight with us through this journey. And so your tears are very welcome and deeply appreciated. So a whole lot of love for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Leo. And yes, you caught my segue. Next Wednesday at 1:30 Eastern, 10:30 Pacific, we will be discussing the realities of higher education in prison as it relates to education and action. So please sign up, register. I believe Meg dropped that in the chat a couple of times. You can also locate that on our website. And thank you so much, everyone, for your time this afternoon and morning. And thank you most of all to Victoria and Leo. This has been just wonderful.
A whole lot of love and gratitude. Okay, feel free to come off mute. Say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you
Have
so
an
much.
amazing
Thank
rest of
you
your
so
week.
much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Leo, Troy, good job.
Peace and love, you all. Peace and
Wonderful.
love.
Peace and love. Thank you.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Always.
Okay, I'm gonna end the meeting now. It was wonderful seeing you
Okay.
guys. Thank you for all the work you put into this. Thank you to everyone who attended. You make this community a community, and we're at the Alliance. We're just so grateful. So thank you, and we'll hopefully see you next week.
Yes.